The crown jewel of DC Comics and all comics has been and should always be Superman. The thing is, it's so much. You even look at like every comic book character that came after Superman owes a debt to Superman for one thing or the other: the secret identity, the glasses, and the change of character to try to change the look and demeanor and when you're hiding as your secret identity. And that's why the character has transcended the genre. And he is not only the crown jewel, but I always say the crown itself, the king above all others, the comic book king of kings. Doesn't mean everything has to be just like him or every comic book has to feature him, but to not acknowledge that and to let that, when you own that, it's yours, it's your property, and you have a huge fan base, to not run with that is a real problem. It's been a very, very long time since a lot of people have really looked at the character as an ultimate character, a character that was made out of Teflon that could, for 75 plus years, could deflect almost any kind of criticism. He could walk off any kind of a failure as a character. But it's becoming harder and harder. And in this day and age where even the biggest films that make billions of dollars, people sort of forget about them, so many fans worry that Warner Brothers and DC just doesn't get it. A character that's had as much longevity as Superman, right? You're nothing lasts forever, and you're not it's not guaranteed Superman is perpetual, and people will just continue to buy the books and continue to see the movies. That even with Batman, it's a big deal in a world of mega blockbusters that cross billions and billions of dollars. Even in a movie together with Batman and Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice, they cannot sniff $1 billion where everybody else is just popping up all over the place with them. The Transformers movies are just absolute nonsense, and they're $1 billion guaranteed every single time. So I thought about, and when Superman, as DC has almost been deconstructing the character and tearing the character apart for 30 plus years until finally Zack Snyder really hit the brakes, changed the direction, and he got Superman out from under the shadow of The Dark Knight Returns. This is the time they have to run with it. They've done a really good job of making him part of the fabric of this growing DC universe. But a couple of lines in Suicide Squad, what it looks like he might be as a part of the fabric that makes up the actual Justice League film, the theme of everything, that's good, that's great, that's what you have to do. But the character is just sitting there in the meantime. In the comic books, and Scrapster will tell you, there's tons of comic books where he's in it, and it's like, again, he's the fall guy. Again, he's the foil for somebody else. Again, he's the guy that's going to fail and flop right on his face. And they just treat the character with such disrespect, and it's almost like you read a Superman book to learn about everybody else, to read about every other character in there. And then even if you argue like the Romita series that ended, okay, so the solar flare where he lets off all this huge energy that he's got stored up, well, then you have a huge series of comic books where he's no longer the good Superman again. Or the classic Superman. He's lost all of his powers for for a period of time. He's wearing blue jeans again. I guess his cape is all torn up and wrapped around his hands like boxing tape, and he's riding motorcycles. And even the biggest Superman fans that are popular celebrities were talking about that comic, and they were showing the picture, and they were saying he looks like, the wannabe hipster, or he looks like the D-bag that, punches the punching bag at a gym or something. It was just dreadful. But he's on a Harley Davidson. He looked like an idiot. How about, put him in a situation where the situation is really, really difficult to take on. All around a city or chasing a train or something with all the moving pieces so that he can actually save people. And yet, no, we can't do that because what? There are no more excuses for Warner Brothers and DC Comics. They need to treat the character with freaking respect, because if not, he may wind up being, he's a little tiny, half-inch drawing in the corner of some comic book, or he shows up in some animation before a movie, but never the big character, never the main story, or given a good story where a major big-time writer really works with him and does something spectacular with him, like they did with Green Lantern, like they helped reinvent Batman a few times, like they've done with countless other characters, from Batwoman to Blue Beetle and every character in between. Well, if they don't get on board with it, with this character, that will be the crime of the century. Worse than what even Lex Luthor tried to do in Superman the movie. And when the reality has become stranger than what the villains want to do in fiction, that is something that is super, super fucked up.